Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with Nick Hemowitz from London. Nick is an accomplished business coach, content creator, and works for Strategizer, one of the leading strategy tool companies in the world. I wanted to talk to Nick today and have him share his ideas about business, especially business coaching. I've been thinking long and hard about the attributes of a successful business and whether these attributes would have had a different outcome if carried over to companies that have had a coach. So Nick, can you explain how a business coach works with companies and individuals?
That's a great question, Ron, and I think there's so many different types of business coach out there. So I think probably the best way that I can approach this question is by giving you an answer from my perspective and how I do things as a business coach. So for me, I'm really interested in innovation and helping companies do new types of business and create new types of business models. So there's a fantastic quote from Alex Osterwalder, and he says that business models expire like yogurt in your fridge. Except the difference between a business model and yogurt is you don't know when your business model is going to expire because it doesn't have a clearly labeled expiry date on it, right? So you've constantly got to be looking for new business models for your business because otherwise we know what happens. Things like that happened to Blockbuster and Kodak, right? So I work with companies, particularly with boards, board level, but also with other different levels of the organization to help them come up with plans and strategies for how they can create new business models. And this is really my approach because there will be other types of business coaches that maybe help set up processes that will help you manage your existing business better. But what I'm really excited about is helping organizations come up with new types of businesses and business models.
So what kind of tools do you use to help the companies either work their business model or establish a new business model?
So often what I first do is try to understand what the company's goals, purpose, and vision are. So that's just, and values as well. So just asking them and then mapping it out, writing out on a whiteboard, that type of thing. Very high level stuff, just to see where the company's trying to go. And then what I then like to do is map out the company's business model using a tool called the Business Model Canvas. Shall I give a quick explanation of the Business Model Canvas?
Yeah, I think it's important because I know it's a very pervasive tool that's used in business.
Absolutely. It's probably the most important tool that gets taught on MBAs and business schools all around the world. And it was created by Strategizer, the company that I now work for 4 days a week. I do business coaching, but also content creation for them. And the Business Model Canvas is a tool for helping you analyze your business in terms of where it is right now and where it's come from, but also for looking into the future and where it could go. And so what I like to do is work with the company and say, okay, let's have a look at what your business model canvas is. And there are 9 building blocks, okay? And just to take one step back, a business model is a description of how your company creates, delivers, and captures value, okay? That's all a business model is. And the business model canvas enables you to map it out visually because otherwise, we could talk about business strategy for 2 hours. You could say a lot of words, I can say a lot of words, and by the end of the 2 hours, I don't know whether what you were saying was what I heard or whether what I said was what you heard either. So when we map it out visually, we're much more likely to be on the same page, literally, because we've literally mapped it out onto one page. And so the 9 building blocks are, who's your customers? That's an important thing to understand. What is your value proposition? What's your product and the benefits that it offers to customers? What's the channel? How do you get your product or service to your customer? Is it through a physical retail store outlet? Is it through a website? Is it through social media? There are lots of different ways you can get your product to your customer. How would you describe your customer relationship? Is it one-off or is it recurring again and again? Is it a loyal relationship or is it kind of like it's not really like their heart's not in it. It's not like the iPhone where they'll queue up all night for it. It's just like buying screws. Do you know what I mean? They're not.
Yes.
It's not that deep. Then you've got revenue, which is the 5th one. What type of revenue streams have you got? Is it a subscription model? Is it one-off transactional? Is it kind of brand deal fees? It could be these types of things. So that's the front end, and then the back end, you've got What are your key resources? What are the things that you need to enable your company to work? It could be as an individual. If you're just starting your business and you've got an audience, or maybe people know you, you might be the key resource. It might be intellectual property. It could be your tech platform. It could be many things. The key activities. What are the key things? What are the things that you're doing? So maybe marketing, could be sales, could be having calls, trying to set stuff up like that. Key partnerships. Who are your key partners that are going to help you deliver this? And then lastly, what are your main costs? And if we have a conversation and we map out all those 9 things for your business, I like to think of it as I'm almost stripping it naked, your business, and I can see exactly how it works just by going through this tool, the business model canvas. So I spend quite a bit of time working with my clients on this.
So it's very similar to building a house. You have a blueprint of the house. Everyone could see the blueprint. Everyone understands what they're supposed to do. And then you have all the material requirements. In this case, it's human resources, or it's marketing, or it's something like that. So that analogy is correct?
Absolutely. What I would say is that sometimes people criticize the business model canvas for saying that it's just a snapshot. But the thing is, you make one business, because we could do a business model canvas now for your business as it is right now, but we can also do another business model canvas for where you want your business to be in the future. And so, therefore, then that is your kind of architectural drawing for what you want to create. The only difference I would say is that it can be more fluid. And so you can keep tracking it. Every few months, you could keep tracking your business model canvas, updating it, and then comparing it with where you want it to be. And so I think it's slightly different because with the house, it needs to look pretty much very closely to what the blueprint was. But with the business model canvas and with your business, there are, of course, exceptions to this. But as long as you're generating revenue, you might have a goal for your revenue and that's what you want to achieve, but there might be lots of different ways that you can get there, and that might be okay.
Got it. So do you work with the CEO first, or do you bring in marketing and finance and operations? How do you put it together so it's effective and efficient?
You've got to have the CEO on board on innovation, because this is what we're talking about, business innovation. If the CEO is not involved, it's not going to work. And the CEO needs to be spending at least 40% of their time on this stuff, because they need to be committed to it. Otherwise, it's what's called innovation theatre. It's this kind of playing lip service to innovation. They're not really going to change. So I've got to work with the CEO. I've got to work with different teams in the organization as well.
So can you give us an example, and you don't have to name a company, can you give us an example of a success using the process and a failure using the process?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so let me start with the failure. The first one was that I was having a meeting with the board of a company, and we were going through the business model canvas trying to map it out, what they were doing. But in this case, I normally go through a tool called the 6 Thinking Hats by Edward de Bono. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's an incredible way to collaborate more effectively with other people. And I usually work with the board using that tool first before we get to any of the other business tools, to help avoid any of the conflict that can often happen. But there was one time that I didn't use it, and it was really interesting because we were mapping out a business model canvas, and it was a mess. Everybody had different opinions. We weren't getting anywhere. Everyone was pulling in different directions. So I said, hold on, stop. Let's go back to the 6 Thinking Hats, taught them that, and then we went back to the canvas, and then we managed to get through it. But I'm so surprised how bad companies can be at even just talking to each other and being on the same page without some of these tools.
And these are not just startups, right? These are existing companies that are trying to work on their model, right? So you would think that a company that's working on their model would have some cohesiveness and an understanding of where they wanted to go.
100%. And that's why it's such a shock, right? Where you go in and you're like, wow, this is a mess. How do you guys operate? Because there was so much negative examples. Oh, we couldn't do that because of this. Oh, well, that's not going to work because, oh no, we tried that, but that didn't work. And I'm like, oh my, and they wanted to do it more quickly than I would normally suggest. And I was like, not like this, you're not, because when you're going through generating ideas, everybody needs to be generating ideas together. There's nothing worse than having one person saying, oh, that idea is not going to work. Oh, that's a bit dangerous. Oh, that's a bit, what, hit round here? Oh, no, that would never work around here. That's not how we do things around here. And so that's what came up. It's almost stereotypical kind of stuff, and it came up in one meeting. So I stopped and I said, look, let's do the six thinking hats. And as part of that, we say, look, when we're criticizing, we criticize together. But when we come up with ideas, we come up with ideas together. No one puts anything down. Everything is yes and. So that was one negative experience that I had. But again, it wasn't to do with the tools. It was to do with the people. And often it's if you've got the right tools and you encourage people to use them in the right way, then you can really get there.
Can you think about one of your best successes that you think about and you smile every time you
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really interesting, I was working with a construction company that were building cladding for buildings. And in the UK, there's been quite famous negative press around cladding because there were some big fires that caused many people died as a result. So it's really got a negative connotations when you talk about buildings cladding on the side of the buildings.
So this is the outside,
the fascia, the facade, right? Yeah, but it can be incredibly effective because it can be efficient to put up, and it can be a lot cheaper, and in some cases it can be better than other types of like brick or whatever. And so I was working with one company, and so the problem was it was like 1%, like 0.5% or 1% combustible, their cladding, which actually means that it doesn't burn. If the whole building burns, it just it would smolder a little bit, maybe. So in fact, that was probably better than most of the other types of material that you could use to make a building with. But I helped them with their business model, mapping out the business model, mapping out their value proposition, getting clear on their strategy and what they needed to do. And it really just came down to they need to, because of the regulation, they needed to find a 100% not combustible material. And they needed to spend a lot of money on research to be able to get that done. And what's very exciting, and it was through the clarification of what we did together that we really solidified their understanding and their unity as a board. And they were so clear on where their business was, where it needed to be, and what elements they needed to laser in on to be able to innovate for the future. And it's exciting because I've been speaking with them and they've just managed to find now this new cladding. So it's going to be a great innovation for them. And they've just been winning awards I've been seeing as well. So it's very exciting working with that as an example.
That's great.
Of a company.
That's great. So, your hat is not only helping companies develop their business plan, but you're almost partly a psychologist when you're working with these, with the people in the company.
100%. I studied something called Neurolinguistic programming, so NLP. I studied with Ian McDermott, who's one of the top, he's a psychotherapist, but one of the top practitioners of neurolinguistic programming in the world. I've spent a long time studying with him. And also Patricia Riddle, who's a professor of neuroscience. And as part of that, there's a lot of kind of coaching training, and I've done a lot of kind of life coaching as well. And this was really before I started getting into the business coaching, innovation side of things. So I do try to approach my business coaching with the coach approach, which is trying to ask questions as much as anything else, rather than trying to give advice too much. Because I really like this one as well. I don't know if this is true, but I heard the word question comes from I think it's the Greek querare, which is it makes sense. Question comes from the word from the meaning quest. So you're going on a journey. So when you ask someone a question that they've never heard before, they have to go on a journey inside themselves to find the answer. And you can see that when they do. When you ask a question and someone doesn't know the answer to it, they stop. And often you can see their eyes just kind of go to the side and then look up, and you could see it's like they're searching for it inside themselves. And I've done that a lot in my life coaching, and when I can bring that into the business coaching, I think it's quite magic.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So just to filter it down to like essentials, if someone's starting a business now, what can you describe what the essentials they might need to have a successful chance of the business being successful?
Yeah, the first thing I'd be saying is you want to get clear on what are your goals, what's your vision, what's your values, just basic stuff to start with. And then what I'd say is map out a business model canvas, and it shouldn't take more than half an hour. If it's taking you much more than that, you might be doing it wrong. Also, there's a value proposition canvas, which zooms into what are your customers' jobs to be done, yeah? What is the progress that they're trying to make in their life, right? And what are the gains, the outcomes that they want, and the pains that they're experiencing at the moment with their current solution, right? Identify what those things are, and also identify how your product or service could maybe help them alleviate those pains and overcome and achieve those gains. That's some questions I'd be thinking. Again, about half an hour mapping stuff out, just with assumptions to start with. And then what you can do is you can take those assumptions and you can start speaking to customers and validating them through customer interviews. You need to be speaking to your customers as much as possible. And then also, what you want to do is identify from the business model canvas and from the value proposition canvas, the sticky notes that you've put on those. A lot of them are guesses. But you need to work out which ones are the ones that you have evidence or no evidence. Okay? And the other ones, and also what's the most important? Because the ones that are most, the most risk and that you have no evidence on, well, you better go and test those first. And then you need to identify the types of tests that you can run, the experiments that you can run to validate those hypotheses. Because you turn the assumption into a hypothesis, like a statement that is testable, and then you go and test it in the cheapest possible way. So can you be speaking to customers? Can you be making landing page websites to see if people will sign up for your product? Don't make your product until you know that customers are going to be ready to pay for it and buy it. So try and do lots of tests to really get that data to show that people want your product, because it's likely that no one wants what you're going to do. So don't waste your time building something before you've even built your customer base. I've got to tell you as well, my philosophy is that I believe you need to build an audience, and then you can start using and applying these tools even easier. If nobody knows who you are, they can't buy from you. So really, if you look at what I'm doing with my business, so I work 4 days a week with Strategizer, but I'm also trying to grow my presence, my audience, so that more people know who I am. That's why I'm doing YouTube and really building on LinkedIn as well, because I know in the long term, people who know what I do can then buy from me. And so that's, and then I can start applying a lot of these tools more to online digital courses, digital products and stuff like that. And then it gets really exciting. I'd say build your audience as much as you can, and often you can build it under your own name to begin with, because Elon Musk, he's got 50 million followers on Twitter. I think Tesla only has about 10 last time I checked, I think. And it's the same with Richard Branson and Virgin. And you look at a lot of these people, it's the lead, you connect with people, so build up your own presence, and then you'll be able to build lots of companies out of that. But equally, if you're starting and you want to just get started building the products and services, first of all, what's your vision, your goals, your purpose, your values? Then what's your business model canvas? What's your value proposition canvas? What are the assumptions? Then how can we test them cheaply? And the thing that you need to think about is, do not try to extend the life of your idea. Your job as an entrepreneur is to try, through experimentation, to get proof to kill your idea as quickly as possible. That's a mindset that you need to get into as well.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so it was great. I was having a conversation with the CEO of Segment, the founder of Segment. It's a data analytics company, to put it loosely. They had $500,000 in funding that they got. They were on Y Combinator, and basically had spent a year and a half, spent $500,000. There was a team of 4, and they had nothing to show for it. Nothing had been successful. And so they were really getting stressed out. They were really getting worried. All of them, the health was going down. They had basically 6 months left. to try to make something work. The co-founder was saying like, oh, I want to build this analytics. It's basically an open source library for developers. And he said, look, I think this is going to be a thing. And the founder, CEO was saying, no, we can't build a business around an open source library. It's not going to work. You can't do that. But they kept pushing. They were fighting, falling out of it. They said, okay. He said to himself, what we're going to do is we're going to build a landing page as an experiment, and then we're going to post it on Hacker News. Yeah, Hacker News is a place where they can post it so other people can see, and then it can get voted up or voted down if people like it or not. Yeah, and so they ran the test because he said to himself, I want to kill this idea as quickly as possible because we only have 6 months, so we can move on to the next idea.
Got it.
But in trying to kill it, they got validation. It went crazy on Hacker News. It's now been sold to Twilio for $3.2 billion. But that idea came from the CEO saying, I'm going to kill this idea as quickly as possible. But the customers wanted it, and they kept giving feedback. They kept listening to the customers, and they kept giving them what they were trying to do in the progress they were trying to make and helping them solve their problems. Because you may have a vision for what you want to achieve, like Steve Jobs. You think, I can be the next Steve Jobs. I can be really clear on what I want to do for this business. I know what excellent looks like, and we're going to do it. But actually, no one can be like Steve Jobs. Maybe Steve Jobs was lucky. Maybe he was one of a kind. Maybe he was special. Maybe he was lucky. Most of us are not Steve Jobs. Most of us need to listen to our customers. Most of us need to experiment. And most of us need to focus on solving the problems of our customers, not trying to implement our vision for the business.
You've given really great examples and an understanding of processes. Not only do you work with corporations, but what if an individual comes to you? Let's say, you and I have both YouTube channels, and you're killing an idea is really a great summary. Is that we try things on YouTube, and if it doesn't work, we kill that idea and move on to something that might work better. But when individuals come to you individually, are these individual entrepreneurs that are trying to raise money, trying to start a business, or are they some people that have like a one-person consulting or product business that they're trying to get off the ground?
In those cases, what I would do is direct them towards the books from Strategizer, because really they're like a roadmap, and they're almost like school textbooks, but like the best textbooks that you've ever had that will tell you exactly what you need to do. And so one of the top books is Testing Business Ideas by David Bland. And so anyone looking to kill their idea as quickly as possible, because that's what I think that you should be doing, especially if you're an early stage entrepreneur, you need to read the book Testing Business Idea. There's a library of, I believe, 52 different experiments. I might have made that, don't quote me on the number there, that you can apply and when to apply them to help you test your ideas. So that would be the first point of call that I would really recommend everyone to check out.
Right. So, my background is also in venture capital, and I realized that as venture capitalists, they put seed money into a lot of companies, hoping that one or two will be the billion-dollar success. And at a certain point, those venture capitalists who are funding that company, if they don't feel like that company is moving forward, they drop them. So I can understand the situation where this company was trying to kill an idea. They did get sold for $3.2 billion. But if they failed, they wouldn't get any more money, and that would have been the end of them.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And it's interesting because I've done a lot of work with venture capital companies. They would have there was one specific one that I was working with where they would do strategy days with the companies that they were looking to invest in. And so what they did was they would invite me in to go through the process that I've spoken to you about on the call earlier, mapping out all the values, the goals, the business model canvas, the value proposition canvas, the future business model canvas, talking about key partners, competitors, looking at all this analysis. And I would literally make the business model naked, so you could see, everybody could see really what's going on. And in some cases, it was not the best for the company, but it was good for the company in the long term because it helped them even realize where they were. But I would actually show the venture capital firm that the company that they were looking to invest in was not as far along as they had thought that they were as a result of the analysis that I'd done, because I was really able to make it clear. But it also helped the company because they were able to understand what they needed to work on to improve. So it was good. Maybe it meant that they might not have got as much investment, or maybe didn't get investment, but it did mean that they knew what they needed to work on immediately to move them forward.
Oh, those are very wise VC companies, because they have a limited amount of money that they want to spend, and having you there laying bare the business model of a company is much better than the company trying to persuade them that they have a good business model.
And this is the thing around most pitches, that most pitches are based off of stories, and most pitches are fictional. You want your pitch to be based off of facts, and that's why running these experiments is so important. And this is part of what we've done at Strategyzer. In the most recent pitch event, we were doing a cohort for 10 startups, went through this cohort, and they were taught how to deliver evidence-based pitches based off of a scientific approach of collecting evidence over 12 weeks. And it was incredible watching the pitches that they gave, showing their feedback, showing the facts. And in some cases it wasn't great because, 12 weeks is short, but if you've got 10 of them, there'll be one or two that do really well, and that's absolutely the case. But as you know, with venture capital, you probably need 200 to really have a standout success. Like really, like the next billion-dollar company, you probably need at least 200 to be able to get one of those. But out of 10, there's certainly some promising ones that came out of that. So I'd recommend checking out Strategyzer's channel. It's called Not Your Average Pitch Event, so you can watch it for free there.
Well, I definitely will put the link down to that. I'll put the link down to your channel. And do you have any last parting words of wisdom that you want to impart on people that are thinking about their businesses?
I would like to leave this conversation and leave these 3 questions with your audience, which is really the customer profile from the value proposition canvas. I'd like you to think about, what is the outcome that your customers want? What's the gain? What's the benefit that they're looking to achieve? What's the pain that they're looking to move away from, the difficulty, the frustration? And what's the progress they're trying to make in their lives? What are maybe the tasks or activities that they're trying to complete? So those are 3 questions. What their jobs to be done, the activities they're trying to complete, the progress they're trying to make, that's question 1. Question 2, what are the outcomes that they want? What are the benefits that they want? And number 3, what are the pains and difficulties that they're currently experiencing in their lives? If you can write that down and have a really clear idea of that, that's going to help you really make products and services that will really help them in their lives.
Well, I'm hoping when people watch this video, they'll call you or reach out to you to get some advice. I mean, I think the information you gave is just invaluable to startup companies and for companies that are in business and their business model is fading, because times have changed. And thank you, Nick, very much, and look forward to speaking to you the next time. I'm sure we'll be talking very frequently because your ideas are really ideas that the business community should hear about.
Thank you so much, Ron. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.